All right, we are back. So now we're going to look at a similar thing to the knife we looked at before. We're going to look at a parrying dagger. So proper parrying daggers do make a return in the 19th century, certainly probably well after the period of Pringle Green. This is something that comes back primarily with the interest in historical martial arts that you get from people like Hutton. There's also some, the French were apparently interested in historical martial arts as early as like the 1860s, according to Chris Slee, who did a talk not months ago now, but his talk was fantastic. So check it out on our YouTube channel or alternatively on our Facebook videos. But yeah, there was a point in the 19th century where the parrying dagger made a comeback. And there's only one English language manual that I know of for parrying dagger, which is Alfred Hutton's Old Sword Play, where he talks about dagger and small sword, so basically get an épée, add a parrying dagger. But interestingly enough, there is video footage of late 19th century sword and dagger. I think this might even be early 20th, because it's actually, this is actually taken on a film camera. People doing sword and dagger with an épée and what is basically a very short épée. The term used now is poignard, and you can actually, Benjamin Arms actually makes a replica of the type of dagger used, which is even cooler. But anyway, so with the dagger, the way you hold it is kind of like the boxing guard. I'm sitting the dagger here so that the blade of the dagger is basically covering my sword arm from the inside. So my shell basically makes it hard for my opponent to get me on the outside of the sword arm. The dagger makes it hard to get on the inside. I can also do this, where I put the dagger basically on my elbow and either point it just along my arm or just out, so that there is a blade in the way of my sword arm if I think my opponent's going to have a crack at it on that side. Although that makes parrying to inside a little bit more difficult, not as much as you think though. And the idea with this is basically, for the most part, the fighting is normal, sort of, sword doing its swordy things. But every so often, what I want to do is do a dagger parry. The movements for the dagger parries are exactly the same as the movement for sword parries. So to run through my favorite basic parries very quickly, if you want more information about this kind of sword system, check out, we've got a saber crash course lesson and also the other Cutlass lesson, which I'm going to link in the event after we finish tonight. So I cover this stuff in a lot more detail there. But basically the parries, this is my medium guard, sorry. So this is my medium guard, from which I do most of my fencing. My parries are tierce, cart, low cart, high tierce, low tierce. I use a lot of tierce and cart parries. This is like 90% of my parries are those. And then after that, I have prime, second, and septime. So prime, second, basically just, second is just prime on the outside or prime is second on the inside. With the dagger, the one I'm most interested in is the hand position of tierce, because that's what I'll be doing the most. So when I'm parrying, because my high inside does seem open, especially because my guard is covering the high outside. Once I'm in a medium guard, but why be in a medium guard? That's so uncomfortable. Only uncomfortable with the dagger. Single sword, medium guard's fantastic. And so anything comes in, I come to a high tierce, basically a high tierce position. So my arm stays at a bit above 90 degrees. I don't want to contract it like that because anything comes in is going to cause the dagger to crash into my own face. Whereas from here, you can see why the Quillians are cool, right? From here, I'm quite strong. So what I do is I sit, I wait, and I come in. I wait for my opportunity. I come in and with a parry of, with a dagger parry of high tierce, and throw my counterattack. So, dagger parry of tierce, counterattack. Dagger parry of tierce, counterattack. Dagger, parry with 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 tierce, counterattack. This is best done as a single movement. So I want to do this off a predictable attack. If my opponent is in like a hang guard or high tierce, and is going to do, or the hand is really, really high before they riposte, chances are they're going to come in high, and that's my opportunity, so just wait. Same deal with thrusts. Thrust comes in, high tierce, counterattack. High tierce, counterattack. High tierce, counterattack. High tierce, counterattack. Right, so as you can imagine, one of the things I can do with this, with parrying dagger, not that I actually do this very often when I spar with one of these for whatever reason. I can, do a high tierce, basically high tierce parry in both, or a tierce parry and a high tierce parry with both weapons, come in and follow in with a thrust if I want to come in. Actually, this passing movement, like this movement, is something that you see a lot of in the video footage of essentially épée and dagger. They're very, very fond of these passing steps and coming in with this big long pass. So, gain some movement, parry, riposte, or alternatively aggressive parry, aggressive riposte, which is just a riposte. Right, so I'll show you that from the side. Parry, riposte. Parry, riposte. The step is optional, but I like it because I find that people are very cautious in coming close if you've got a dagger. So parry, riposte. Parry, riposte. I'm not quite as aggressive with this because having it in an overhand grip means I've got a little bit more reach, so I don't have to be quite as committed. Also, the fact that I've got this big, lovely hand guard to make the parry a bit safer also means I don't need to be quite as committed to making it work. But parry, riposte. Parry, riposte. Parry, riposte. Parry, riposte. And parry, riposte. God. All right. So the other cool thing I can do with a dagger in the basically overhand grip, so the tip is over the hand, as opposed to the underhand grip or ice pick grip, where the tip is under the hand, is I can also much more easily counterattack my opponent's hand with the dagger. So I'm in guard and my opponent throws at my high inside, I can come over into a cart parry and have a stab at their sword hand, just go bang. So parry, hand comes over here. This is the position of cart. So my hand is 45. My elbow is slightly more than 90 degrees, so I don't want to collapse it, and is in line with my thumb is in line with the outside of my body. And well, the thrust is just a straight extension. So parry, thrust, 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 and parry, thrust. So when you're doing this, you kind of want to practice it with a partner who's got a lot of forearm protection on. And you start by going parry, thrust, and then you let the movement get smoother until it's kind of one movement, but not really. You do want to be a bit careful with this. You don't want to parry and riposte before your opponents actually reach you and give them time to abort the attack and countercut into your forearm. You want to make sure you scoop them up before you come in, but you've also got the problem that once you get the parry, they're going to retreat because they know their attack hasn't landed, at which point you've only got a very limited window in which case you can hit them. So the timing on this is a lot harder. I think people kind of get, a lot of people want to admit. The same is true on the other side. So if I'm in, let's say, for whatever reason, I'm even extend into a cut, or so just say in high tierce, just keep things out of the way. I wouldn't lie in this guard necessarily, but I will be hit. When playing parry riposte, I will need to parry with a tierce parry at some point. So the difference between tierce guard and tierce parry is the height of the tip. A guard has the tip points at your opponent. In a parry, the tip is high and on the center line to stop your opponent from feinting you. So from here, I'm just gonna have my sword here. Dagger is still in the daggering position. I don't see any reason to move it. So I do the same thing. Parry, come to a parry position and thrust. Parry, thrust. Parry, thrust. Parry, thrust. And some of you notice I'm actually lifting my back foot, which gives me a bit of extra reach, a bit of extra power with just this particular thrust. But the main reason I do is actually it's a bad habit from boxing, because when I'm throwing across in boxing, this is how I generate my power. It doesn't cause any problems, and it actually gives you a little bit of extra reach, so I don't see why you wouldn't do it. But you know, it's not. You can just go parry thrust with a straight foot as well. So parry thrust, 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 and parry thrust. Something's very important when you're turning your body like this with tierce parry is you don't let the parry drift back too far. You still want to keep it out to get enough control of your opponent's sword and get enough leverage on them. But certainly, like, I'm quite fond of these daggers, parrying daggers. If I was going to take an offhand weapon that, unless I needed that weapon to shoot someone with, I'd probably go with one of these, just because I find that, you know, like I can even do stuff like this where I just sit it out and basically treat it like a buckler, where I'm constantly pointing at my opponent's sword side armpit to make it hard for them to come in at me, just because. But yeah, this is, I know, I think these are cool, and I really like fencing saber and dagger, which thankfully is actually a little bit period. All right, so before we move on and look at next weapon in the series, are there any questions?
I haven't got a question, but I'm just really stoked you went over that positioning, because I've done alehouse and dagger for quite a long time, and based on Silver, where he has like a very forward in the fight dagger, opposed to quite retracted and just keeping that arm safe. And I've been trying to make it smaller and tighter, so like, I really needed this, and so did probably David and Hearn, who were also watching and probably giggling.
I'm glad that I can help all of you out. Yeah, not some,
because like all of us move way too much without our house and broadsword. So like this is gonna make us tighten up a lot. And if it doesn't, they're gonna be mad when I said it was gonna.
Yeah, not some. Yeah, well, it's probably. I mean, now's the time to work on form stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully, when we can fence again, you'll have you can do some sword and dagger, and you'll have some really, really tight dagger guards. Because yeah, like if you can get that dagger guard tight, it means that you can be wider with your sword, which means that it's harder to parry, and you can just like mess up people's day. I know, sort of, yeah. No, but I'm glad this could help. You know, I'm glad it's not just like me sitting and talking to, a medium-sized audience. Yeah. Cool. So does anyone have any questions or comments, compliments, condemnations, complications, collaborations, confuzzlements? I know I've run out of con words. Yeah. I'll take those in a minute. I'm just going to pause recording and we'll be back in a minute.